websites, but how, is there a difference in the way the projects were put forward or those kind of things that you can identify from the surveys that could be lessons learned?
Some of it I can identify from the survey, and some of it is just more, I would say, expert opinion based on sort of studying these things. I would say both on the basis of expert opinion and the survey, there's much greater concern for air quality issues in Delaware. And again, there's been some concern about a cancer cluster in southern Delaware and what its relationship is to the coal plant. There's a lot of people who don't like the coal plant. So I think that's one. There was never a well-financed opposition. There really was never an opposition movement in Delaware. There are now some Tea Partiers who are opposed after our past interesting senatorial election, but certainly having a well-heeled, well-financed opposition makes things different. I would say that Delawareans are, I'm not a native Delawarean, but my impression is that they're good government types, and they like to do the right thing. It is in one respect, it may be the bluest state in the country right now, in the red versus blue, but I wouldn't say it's the most liberal state. But the sort of historic progressive Republicans, liberal Republican establishment types in Delaware, my guess is they're now mostly Democrats. And Delawareans, I think, they want to do the right thing, and I think they thought that this was the right thing, and I think people in Cape Cod may not quite have that same view of their role as citizens, but that's sort of more. There I'm getting more into speculation than I am with actual survey data. The other thing is, it's the way the Cape Cod project came about, it was very much developer initiated. I'm going to come and put this wind farm in Nantucket Sound and bring you clean energy. And I think, and that's why I said we were surprised that the developer now seems to have eventually turned the tables, but I think there may have initially been some animus towards the developer. In Delaware, the selection, I think, one of the great things about having an all-source bid, offshore wind had to compete on price and other attributes, and we included shadow prices of carbon and potential future natural. We had to compete against coal and natural gas. And people got to see that debate and participate in that debate. So before wind came to Delaware, I think there was a sense that there was a debate and an ability to participate that there wasn't in Cape Cod, and that no one thought that they were coming in as some people thought they were a bit of interlopers because the president is from New York versus being Delaware, and Delaware, like Hawaii, is a small state and everyone knows everyone, and it doesn't take long till I was at the time an assistant professor, and but I was engaged in the process, and after a little while I emailed the governor's chief of staff and said I want to meet with you or the governor. Now, I grew up in Michigan, and I would have never gotten a response to that email, but half an hour later I got an email from the chief of staff saying, and he didn't know me from any, I never met him. He said, sure, I'll meet with you, maybe the governor, I don't know, but I'll meet with you. And Delaware's a different place than Massachusetts, and you can do things in Delaware or in Hawaii or in Maine. That's why they've been quite successful in pushing the deep water offshore wind. You can do things, I think, in smaller states that are more difficult to do in larger states. But we had a big political fight in Delaware because no one really, had thought about offshore wind, and when we were thinking about new generation, people were thinking about carbon capture and storage. What's the next generation of coal? We have companies that are generating coal. How do we move to the next step with these coal companies? So it sort of came out of left field, and it took a lot of education. And I think probably putting forward a lot of positive education set the tone of the debate, where in Cape Cod, there was a lot of mixed messages going forward to the public, which there weren't. I mean, there obviously were some in Delaware, and there were some big companies that fought the project and put out some misinformation, disinformation, but for a large part, the good information, I think, got through. Yeah.
So are you involved with the state of Hawaii's efforts for the Inter-Island Cable Project?
For the which project?
For an Inter-Island Cable Project, a land site, a shoreside wind farms?
I'm not. I have met the director of the Energy Center here, and actually I'm hoping to meet with him maybe tomorrow. He was out he actually also is a Delawarean by root. I'm a little familiar with the project, but I hope to learn more about it tomorrow. I haven't been engaged, but yeah, I think it's potentially quite interesting, and some of the plans for Hawaii are quite exciting.
So I would presume that some of your survey results would help for maybe outreach, proactive information to the public based on what you found in
I would hope so. Yes. Yeah.
One aspect you pointed out was that a lot of people think it'll reduce their electricity costs really quickly, which it won't. Because you also have to, and with wind, you have to have stabilization. You have to have a stable source even with the wind. And so, how do you? Because it's over time, they're going to notice that it's going up. And I know you asked the question, how much would you pay? But I think that's one that confuses people. And we need to counter that. I mean, energy independence is a good goal. And I think everybody relates to that. But I worry when I hear about, well, we're going to save this much money. To invest in new technologies, it takes money.
I would agree with most of what you said. The one point I'd like to clarify, in the near term, we don't really have a problem. I don't know if it's same true in Hawaii, but where I live, we don't have a real hard time with balancing with the intermittent resource, because we're a part of what's known as PJM, which is Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, a little bit of West Virginia, a little bit of Ohio. We got over 50 million people, and they're at all times balancing. So if the wind's not blowing, or likewise, if the nuclear power plant shuts down, and it's a gigawatt power plant, and it shuts down, they have to be ready instantaneously to throw something else on so that the system stays alive. So they've said until we get to 20% penetration, they've got no issues. So, but I would agree with you. In the near term, it's going to cost more if we don't include the external costs of the existing generation, and people are going to pay more for their electric bill. So, and people need to, wrap their heads around that and get comfortable with paying a little more. When we were doing the analysis, when we were going through the all-source bid, it was shown that it was going to cost more. But the other thing is, as you add some wind to the system, because it's only a small fraction of the overall supply, while it might cost a couple cents more per kilowatt hour to deliver. Once you integrate that in with the rest of the generation, you know, you're generally talking $1 or $2 per month per consumer more. So the actual bill impact is pretty small. Again, in our state, we had deregulation in 1999, and we had prices frozen for a number of years, and then electric bills went up 59%. And that's the kind of thing that people don't really cotton to. You know, and we found that $1 or $2, people are not that troubled with that per month. It's the, you know, the great amounts. And, but sure, I would agree. The first projects are going to cost more, and people don't always have a long-term view. But if we build a bunch of these projects, you know, we just submitted a paper on the cost of energy, and you know, right now it takes, you know, federal government policy, and it's going to be important to extend the investment tax credit, which lowers the capital cost to developers, which makes it possible for them to sell something at, you know, 16, 17 cents a kilowatt hour versus, you know, some, you know, the existing prices. But it is still, offshore wind is significantly cheaper than any kind of solar, if you don't include the subsidies for solar, as far as, you know, rooftop solar. And on retrofit, rooftop solar is always going to be expensive because of the labor charges. You know, the cost of the panels are going down to close to nothing as they're being manufactured in China. But if you have to retrofit your house, it's expensive. New construction is, you know, obviously a different issue. You already got your roofer there, you got an electrician, you got all these people, and you can integrate it. But on retrofits, it's going to be expensive. But yes, I would agree with you that, you know, some people are just mistaken if they think that their bills are going to go down. In the back.
I think I have a related question that has to do with the economics of it. I mean, it's pretty clear that it's a good source for renewable energy. It's a good direction for us to move in the areas that we can do that where it's feasible. The numbers that you showed for questions you're asking consumers about what they're willing to subsidize with their increased rates over the next couple of years, between $1 and $30 is a huge range on a monthly basis. But I'm wondering how transparent the process has been with these developers, these people that are dumping venture capital into this industry, and what they're showing you in terms of the capital costs of investment to build this infrastructure, and how you're able to look at that data and communicate that to the people that are going to be paying the increased rates to subsidize the new infrastructure. So basically, are they going to have the taxpayers paying to build them a new industry that they're eventually going to be making a ton of money on? And that's going to be really important in your outreach, I think. So I'm wondering how transparent they've been with you in this process as they develop the new industry.
I would say in general, the developers keep things close to the vest on their pricing. When I was involved in the proceeding, I tried to force open as much as I could. I found this sort of odd loophole that allowed me, I believe, to get all the confidential documents. None of the developers, no matter what the technology, wanted to release it. And ultimately, the compromise was I couldn't get the confidential information, but they forced the developers to release as much as possible without making any claims to confidentiality. But yeah, a lot of the pricing behind it is not known. We can look at existing projects, and you know what the costs are.